good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever the time may be you're actually watching this video, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to learning a little bit more about delivering professional presentations. My name is Ronald Churian, and I'll be your guide. Can you name the most important things when giving a presentation? I can tell you three. Number one, preparation. Number two, preparation. And number three, preparation. Preparation is everything. When you prepare your presentation, you'll be considering some of the basic presentation skills that we'll be talking about today. First, we'll mention objective. Then we'll talk about audience. We will then talk about venue. We'll move on to time and length. After that, we'll be talking about structure. Then we'll be talking about use of notes. We'll then move on to audience rapport. After that, we'll be talking about body language. Then we'll move on to cultural considerations. After that, we'll be talking about visual aids. Then we'll move on to simplicity and clarity. After that, we'll talk about signposting. And finally, we'll summarize this presentation. Let's move on to the first point, which is objective. Before you start your presentation, you should always ask yourself, why am I making this presentation? Do you need to inform, to persuade, to train, or sell? Basically, these are the four main points you usually deliver a presentation for. You're either trying to inform the audience, persuading, convincing the audience of something, you're trying to train them on a new skill, just as this one, or you're trying to sell something. You can even be selling an idea or a product. When this is clear in your head, you can start preparing the rest, not before. If it's clear in your head, it'll be clear for you and your audience. So never, never forget the objective of your presentation. Let's move on to the next point, which is audience. The audience of your presentation. Who am I making this presentation to? Sometimes you'll think, okay, why is this important? It's obvious. I'm delivering the presentation to my colleagues, to my boss. But what if the audience is different? What is if the audience is a group of people you don't know? A group of senior executives, CEOs, directors who are there to make sure you are the one ready to deliver that presentation. You are the one who knows the most about the topic. Maybe that presentation is key in your promotion, and your audience will be the ones helping that decision being made. So who your audience is key. It's really important for you to know if they know about the topic you'll be talking about, if they know the vocabulary, if you're your peers or they're completely strangers who need to know everything in detail about what you're talking about. Who your audience is very important, and you should never forget considering this point when preparing your presentation. Very well, let's move on to the next point, which is venue. Venue, maybe this word sounds strange to you, but venue refers to location, the place where your presentation will be delivered. Why is this important? Because you need to know the place, the space, if you have enough chairs, if you have enough light, if there's a microphone, if there's a video beam, if there's a screen, if there's nothing, if you have only a flip chart. You need to know the venue of your presentation. If you know the venue, you can prepare ahead and you can foresee any problems that may arise before your presentation or throughout your presentation, and you'll be in control. Alright, so venue, the place, the location of your presentation should always be considered by you before delivering your presentation. Very well, let's move on to the next point, which is time and length. Time and length refers to the time of the day you're actually delivering the presentation. When am I delivering my presentation? Is it early in the morning? Is it right after lunch? Or right before lunch when people are very hungry? Or right after lunch when people are really, really sleepy? Or in the evening when people are really, really tired because of having a very rough day at work? You need to know, because if you know that, you can adapt your message, your dynamism, your activities, your language, your speed to your audience. So considering when your presentation will be delivered is really important. Now moving on to length, that refers to how long your presentation will take. Is it 5 minutes? Is it 1 hour? Is it 30 minutes? It all matters, because maybe you have one message and that same message needs to be delivered to 3 different audiences in 3 different presentations. Now let's say your message is about, I don't know, sales forecast of 2011. In one presentation you only have 5 minutes to deliver that message. In another presentation you have 25 minutes, and in another one you have 1 hour. The content of your presentation needs to be adapted to that time frame that you have. So how long your presentation will be is really important. Also, let's say you are delivering a presentation with peers, with colleagues in the same company, and all of you have allotted maybe 10 minutes to deliver a presentation. If you spend more than 10 minutes, you'll be taking the time of your colleague, the next person. And maybe that person will be taking the time of the next one, and so on. And you create a domino effect of overlapping presentations, and at the end, maybe you were expected to deliver the whole presentation in 1 hour, and you spend 2 hours delivering a presentation. So considering length is also important when delivering your presentations. Now let me turn to the next point, which is structure. Just like you see in that picture, structure gives an idea of what comes first, what comes next, what is bigger, what is smaller, shape. In a presentation, structure refers to how your presentation is organized, okay? Just like when you're writing and your idea should be structured in a way in which there's a beginning, a middle, and an end of an idea, when delivering a presentation, all of this information is important too. In the beginning of your presentation, there's actually a short introduction. Within this idea, you have welcoming your audience, like I did today, then introducing your subject, like I did today too, explain the structure of your presentation. Remember that when I went over all the points we were talking about today? And then also you can explain the rules for questioning. In this case, since you're not here with me in front of me, you can't interrupt me, so most of the questions will be made after I've finished, right? But you can always introduce these rules right from the beginning, okay? It's not common, people don't like doing it, but it's very well accepted. Now, after the beginning of the presentation, after your short introduction, you go to the middle of the presentation. That's where the body of your presentation is actually developed, okay? Your main idea. Right now, I'm talking about the main idea of my presentation. This is the body of the presentation, okay? Then after you finish with that part, in the end, in the last part of the presentation, is when you cover the short conclusion. Now, within this part, you may summarize your presentation. You may thank your audience for being there and listening to you. Once again, and then you can invite questions once more. Okay, so remember, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end of a presentation. Okay, let me talk now about about use of notes. Use of notes. Do you notice that before I moved on to the next point, when I was talking about structure, I said, let me move on to audience report. Then I said, sorry, let me talk about use of notes. How did I realize that I had made a mistake and I had to actually talk about use of notes, using notes? Because I have my notes. Now, people think that notes are not professional, that using notes while delivering a presentation makes you look, how do you say, not prepared or without enough experience, or as a rookie, or as a person who's starting in the world of presentations. Actually, it may make you look like that if you write everything you have to say. If everything I have to say right now were written on a piece of paper, I would have to read it. And while reading, you sound robotic or unnatural. And also, people don't like that. People feel, okay, why is the person reading? If he or she is reading, it means he or she didn't do the presentation, or didn't prepare the presentation, or maybe someone else did it for him. People don't like that. People like to be talked to. Now, it is true that we're all human beings and we have something called memory, and sometimes our memory fails. So people like me, maybe not you, but in my case, I consider that even though I am intelligent, my memory is not that good. Now, that doesn't really interrupt me from doing what I need to do. But when delivering a presentation, I need to know exactly where am I going. And in order to know that, I need notes to remind me, to get me back on track whenever I'm lost a little bit. So using notes should be using a little paper, a little note card where you can write the bullet points, the most important topics that you want to mention during the presentation. Maybe you can add and highlight something you want to say, a comment you want to make. You may write to yourself in your notes that you want to play a video at this point, or at this point you want to make a joke. Whatever it is that you use in your notes, it should only be to remind you of something that you need to do throughout your presentation, or things you want to mention. But never, never, ever write a script of what you're actually saying. Okay, so it is feasible. It is accepted to use notes throughout the presentation. Notes, not scripts. Okay. Let me move on now to the point I mentioned before, which is audience rapport.